Chapter 8, Mishnah 6. As a rule, for a person to become tahor when a nega spreads over his entire body, it must be that the nega was originally tameh. See Mishnah 1. The Mishnah applies that rule. If a person has two beharos, one that was tameh and one that was tahor, and one nega spread to the other, i.e., the nega that was tahor spread and connected with the one that was tameh, or the nega that was tameh spread and connected with the one that was tahor, and it then spread over the entire body, the person is tahor. Even if the nega that spread was originally tahor, it is not considered like a nega that was tahor that spread over the entire body, which makes the person tameh. The reason is that when the nega first spread, it became tameh, like any nega that was tahor that spreads. In each of the following cases, there were two negaim near each other, with each one being smaller than a gris, which is the minimum size of a nega. If a person has a nega the size of half a gris on his upper lip, and another nega the size of half a gris on his lower lip, or he has a nega the size of half a gris on each of his two fingers that are next to each other, or he has a nega the size of half a gris on each of his two eyelids, one on the upper lid and one on the lower one. In all these cases, although when the negaim on the two fingers, lips, or eyelids are pressed together, they appear to be one nega that is the size of a gris, the person is tahor. The fact that they appear to be one nega when they are touching is not enough for them to be considered a single gris size nega. They therefore remain two negaim, each one less than the minimum size that makes the person tameh. The Mishnah returns to discuss the laws of a nega that spread over the entire body. The following case involves a person who had both a nega that was confirmed tameh and a bohak, a nega that is tahor. If a nega that had been confirmed tameh spread over the entire body, except for an area covered by a bohak, the person remains tameh. As long as the nega did not cover the bohak, it is not covering the entire body. The Mishnah discusses the opposite case. If a person with a nega that spread over his entire body was declared tahor, and then the tips of his limbs become a type of bohak, the person remains tahor. Even though the bohak is not a type of nega that would normally be tameh, he is nevertheless considered to have a nega that covers his entire body. The previous matter is actually the subject of a dispute, as follows. If, after a person with a nega that spread over his entire body was declared tahor, the tips of his limbs then became a bohak smaller than the size of a lentil, Rabbi Meir rules the person tameh. Rabbi Meir holds that the person is declared tameh even if the skin becomes a bohak. But the sages say a bohak smaller than the size of a lentil is a sign of tuma in the beginning, i.e., if a nega that is tameh spreads over the entire body besides for an area of skin that is covered by a bohak, the person remains tameh, even if the bohak is smaller than the size of a lentil. But it is not a sign of tuma at the end, i.e., once the person became tahor, because of a nega that covered his body, he remains tahor, even if the nega went away and left the bohak in its place. This opinion is followed by the Tanna Kama, who holds that if someone was declared tahor because a nega spread over his entire body, and then the tips of his limbs become a type of bohak, the person remains tahor.